Wednesday, February the 8th. Lake levels right about 906 3/4. Hasn't changed too much. It's been 2 weeks since I did a fishing report. I was in Mexico bass fishing. But water temperature, I did get out the last couple days. I think I fished Sunday, yesterday, and today. But the water temperature is still pretty much the same. It's actually a little bit warmer. We've had such nice weather. But it's anywhere from 47. I have found some 50-degree water. So, starting to warm up a little bit. It looks like I've got a cold front coming through today, but then it's supposed to warm back up a bunch this weekend. So I think it's, for this time of year, it's kind of crazy as far as what the water temperatures are. We haven't had any kind of a shad kill. Water hasn't got cold enough. And it's probably not going to get cold enough unless we get some extreme cold at the end of this month. I'd say everything's going to happen pretty fast. And I say this every year when we have a warm winter. I think the fish will be spawning early. But then it seems like the 1st of March, we always get a big cold front that pushes everything back and, gets things more normal. Like, normally fish start spawning the 1st of April. But, right now I think it's still fairly tough fishing. There's quite a few fish shallow. You got to cover a lot of water to find them. The bottom baits are getting a little harder to fish. The lake's getting a lot of slime on the bottom and around the timber and hanging off the docks. So if you're fishing from anywhere from about 2 feet to 8 feet, a lot of areas it slimes up the crankbait or a jig real bad. Now it's not everywhere, but some banks have it, and that's kind of a normal thing. It happens every time this year till the water gets warm enough, then that stuff breaks loose. But it's getting a little harder to fish the bottom. I am catching some fish on a jerkbait, and probably the Alabama rig's been the most consistent and the better fish been coming on that. I think the last report I did a couple weeks ago, I went over, what type of Alabama rig I like, the blades versus non-blades, but you usually just got to mix it up to see which one's working the best. But I am throwing a lot of Strike King and Kitech swim baits, 3.8 or 4.0. I'm usually mixing up the colors a little bit. Some Swim Fluke Juniors will work as well. Still catching some deep fish. Sunday when I went out, wasn't a breath of wind. It wasn't ideal conditions to be fishing shallow. I tried to jerk bait quite a little bit. Didn't have too much success. I did catch a couple good largemouths on a swim bait, just rigged up on a jig head, a Strike King with about a 1/4 ounce. I think I had a 5/16 ounce jig head in it, swimming it through the timber, getting it down about 10-15 foot in the pole timber. The majority of the fish I caught, I ended up having to go out there deep, and I checked several main lake gravel flat points, and I found some fish from anywhere from 42 to 48 feet deep. Most of them were relating to small brush piles, and I was catching them on a drop shot and also a Rapala ice fishing jig. Now usually the ice fishing jig, I throw 2 different sizes. Got a 5/8 ounce and a 7/8 ounce. It seemed like the other day they wanted the smaller one, which is the 5/8 ounce. I usually throw it on 12-pound line. And, chartreuse and white, blue and white works good, or chrome and black. I think when you get down there that deep, I don't think the colors, all that crucial, unless, like I say, Sunday the sun was shining. A lot of times something with chrome will give off a little bit of flash. Most of those fish were Kentuckies, and they were keeper fish. But I had to fish several areas, 5 or 6 areas in different little brush piles to find a brush pile that had some in it. Once I got one bite, then I got several bites out of the same brush pile. It seemed like I got the fish excited. Now, yesterday the wind blew pretty good, and I fished a stick bait quite a bit. And I didn't get too many bites on the main lake, off of bluff ends and off where deeper structure comes up to shallow, like on the bluff end points where it flattens out. And that's where I kind of thought a lot of the bites should have came from, but they came from the backs of the creeks, flatter pockets where there wasn't very much wind. And you seem like you'd only get 1 or 2 bites per pocket, and the majority of them were smallmouth. And the jerk baits that were working the best when it's sunny, I like this is it's kind of like a Norman flake. This is a Spro mixed stick, but you can kind of translucent bait. When it's cloudy or overcast, I like something more of a solid color. This is a Mega Bass. I throw the 110 Mega Bass quite a bit. And this is also a Spro mixed stick here. The purple and chartreuse, especially the smallmouth, I don't know what it is about the loud color they like, but they will bite it. This one seems to work a little bit better in the overcast, cloudy days. Now I'm catching a few fish also on a Strike King Menace rigged on a, I've got it back there, rigged up on a pig rig on a 1/2 ounce like a wobblehead. Now some places I'm having trouble with slime, but I'm trying to key on channel swing banks on the main lake or just inside of the creek pockets, wherever the channel comes up against like a, not necessarily a bluff bank, but where the channel swings in and touches the bank and swings out. And there's usually a big rock transition there. There'll be smaller and bigger rock, mixed up. But like I say, some places the slime's really been an issue. And the same with the stick bait. If you get it around a cedar tree or a hardwood and it bumps the tree, your bait will come back all slimed up. Now if we get a big influx in water, if we ever get a bunch of rain, lake level comes up, I don't think the moss will be any big issues. And also with the water temperature like it is, I know it's just about into the 50-degree mark, but if we get a big heavy rain, I would be running to the backs of these creeks, with the big spinner bait, and just slow roll it. I think Sunday we got some rain forecasted, but I don't see much in the forecast as far as multi-days of rain, so I don't see, any of that happening. But for the most part, I think the bite is still pretty tough. The deep fish aren't schooled up, real good. When you do find them, you find several. And the shallow fish, whenever you do get a bite, slow down, because you usually get a couple bites, in the same area. So, hopefully that water keeps warming up and we'll get more. There's a lot of fish out real deep, and I think that's why, the jerkbait bite, and we're not getting a lot of nimbers up shallow yet. But I think whenever the water warms up a little bit, those fish start to move out of that deeper water. They're hard to find out there deep right now, but when they start moving up, we'll start catching them a little better. And one thing I did catch a few fish on that'll come into play a lot better as them fish start moving out of that deeper water is like a fish head. This is a 1/4 ounce. This is one that White River Lures makes, and I've got a little 2.8 Kitech on it. Normally I fish these suspended when the fish start coming up out of the deeper water through the submerged timber. But I've been fishing it on some of these flat main lake gravel points, similar to like where the smallmouth usually are. I've been setting the boat in about 20 feet of water and casting the bait out, just trying to keep it on bottom or close to the bottom. But I am having, on some banks, I'm having a problem with the bait getting slimed up. If I get out, keep the bait from 8 feet to 20 feet, I don't seem to have that problem. But if I get in less than 8 to 10 feet, some banks got that slime on it real bad. So, I mean, this is a bait that's going to come into play as them fish start to move around, start coming out of them deeper water, or coming out of that deeper water. So, till next week, good luck, good fishing.